Are you ready to hit the Appalachian Trail but don't know which shoes to wear? Hey, I'm Dave. I just recently completed the Appalachian Trail and I know a thing or two about which type of shoes were the most appropriate for me on the Appalachian Trail. So in this video, we're going to talk about three things. What type of shoes did I wear? And how many miles on each shoe, kind of giving you a little bit of the the terrain that I dealt with while hiking the trail in each shoe, but then also giving suggestions to somebody who is just learning about shoes and how to hike and ready to hit the Appalachian Trail. So the first pair of shoes is the Topo TerraVenture 4s. What I like about Topo is they have a wide toe box. I'm going to just kind of give you some characteristics. They have a small ramp. This is only a 3 or 4 degree ramp from back to front. If you're not familiar with that, is basically how tilted it makes the shoes because of the back of the shoe is higher than the front of the shoe when you land. I follow more of a minimalist type of philosophy, and I felt the 4 degrees was good because of all the up and down that you have to do on the trail. It's going to take a little stress off of the Achilles while you're hiking. So that's why I went with these instead of some other brands. But again, wide toe box. It's less of a tilt. It's got kind of a little up ramp or uplift in the front, but it's not too bad, and especially when you're hiking, it's actually works more like a walking shoe than a running shoe. So those are some reasons. This shoe actually I wore too long. I hiked from I did the approach trail plus mile 1 through 730. I got about total 750 miles out of these shoes. That's way too many. During that period of time, I did experience some what's called anterior tib tendonitis. My shin kind of blew up in the front. I had to manage that for quite a while, but these shoes, the end of these shoes were when I started to get foot pain and kind of hobbled many miles with foot pain until I got into the town of Daleville, where my friend Grasshopper, his wife, was visiting him, and she brought out pair number 2 for me that I had delivered to their house in Connecticut. Trail 1 or shoe 1 was the Triple Crown. That all the Smokies, the Shenandoahs, and Daleville, I believe. I don't know, but I ended up in Daleville, which is just outside of Roanoke. So yes, so I guess we did. I don't know if I did the smoke. No, I didn't do the Shenandoahs. Anyhow, so 1 through 730. Trail shoe number 2, again, TerraVentures, the TerraVenture 4 from Topo. What I found with all these shoes is the front lip started to peel back. All these shoes did that while I was hiking, and that was kind of the biggest problem with these shoes. Otherwise, there's typical breakdown. But this shoe I wore from mile 731 to 1376. So from Daleville to Warwick, New York, which was a total of 646 miles. The reason why it was Warwick, New York is that's where I got off trail for a few days for my son's play, and I got off there, I went home, I had my 3rd pair ready for me at that point. Somewhere in the middle, going through Pennsylvania, I experienced some blisters. We had been hiking for 3 days in the rain, and my feet were just soggy and got macerated and started to develop quite a few blisters. So in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania. I did a video where I talked about this. I basically did surgery on all the blisters, covered them up in Leukotape, and then continued to hike. And that was in these shoes. They did a great job. The nice thing about these shoes are if they do get wet, they express or expel the water fairly rapidly out of them. So if if you go through, some puddles, but then you're walking or hiking, then they dry off fairly quickly. I would not recommend using waterproof shoes or boots on the Appalachian Trail. Many people have talked about this in their videos. These are not even water resistant, I don't believe. So that was till mile 1376. In Boiling Springs, my feet were bothering me a little bit, so I bought these, what are they called? I think Smart Feet. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. Super Feet. And they're just an insert, and I felt like we were heading into kind of the rocky section of Pennsylvania, so I wanted something a little more solid under my feet. So I bought that. I bought those at that point in Boiling Springs, and I got a second or another pair of socks because the other ones were so worn out at that point. Number 3, the third pair I wore was from Warwick, New York to Route 4 in Maine, outside of Rangeley, Maine. So I went up from New York all the way into New England, up over all the mountains, over the White Mountains, into Maine, past Mahoosic Notch, over the Mahoosic Arm, and into Maine, and sat in a shop. I believe it was Rangeley or Stratton. I'm not sure. Rangeley I have written, so I'll go with that. And that's when I went into, trail shoe number 4. But these ones, I did wear the, I continued to wear the orthotic again because rugged terrain, a lot more rugged, New England, Pennsylvania, New York, than I was expecting. I was expecting different in Maine, which it was still rugged. I mean, Maine has everything. If you've ever been there, if you've ever hiked trails in Maine, they have everything that every other aspect of the Appalachian Trail has, kind of in microcosm. I mean, you've got bogs here, you've got bogs somewhere down here, you've got mountains with 1,000-foot climbs, multi-thousand-foot climbs, and then you've got long drawn out sections where you're just in the woods in the 100-mile wilderness. So anyhow, I wore these Trail 3 for 600 miles, 730, 646, learning my lesson, 600. Got into the new shoe. These got the most beat up. They actually, the day before, they got a hole because, like I said, Maine, New Hampshire and Maine were so rugged that I blew out the shoe and I blew out the side of both shoes. Literally, they just fell apart one day, and I was like, I'm done. So I didn't even clean them off. They were like, that was mucky part of the trail, so I didn't clean them off. Kept wearing this again, and then in a store, I asked for the TerraVenture 4, the Topos. The lady says, oh, we have them. I was not wearing my glasses because these are cheaters. I was not wearing them. And she came out with the Topo Traverse, which is not, as you can see, it is not the TerraVenture 4. It's, they're a little different. And I mean, these are the same size. These are size 9. So they just, I left there, I put them on, they felt great. And then I left and I was like, oh, well, I looked at them later and I realized they were not the thing. The TerraVentures, they were the Traverse. But fortunately I did get them because these felt so much better on the terrain that I was in at that point, because we still had mountains to go over, and then we went through 100-mile wilderness and then climbed up Katahdin wearing these. They got about 220 miles in them from miles 1976.8 to 297.4. And that was 220 miles. I've since worn them pretty much every day at work. I did not want to get rid of them. But I will say, with all these shoes, I'm going to kind of go through what I think are important for the Appalachian Trail. 7 something, 6 something, 6 something, 220. I would have, shoulda, coulda got a new pair at mile 470 in Damascus, somewhere after Damascus, maybe the next town or a couple towns, roughly trying to get 500, because like I said, a couple 100 miles or 100 miles of the Triple Crown in Virginia, that kind of was the end of these shoes. These shoes did very well. They went through from Virginia up to New York. So they were able to handle the rockiness of Pennsylvania. And then this is from New York up through most of New England. And I think if I had gotten a pair earlier, a little earlier, I would have had to have gotten a pair probably before the White Mountains in New Hampshire. It's tough to change out shoes unless you get the exact same kind. What I will tell you is, after hiking in these, this tread gets so worn down that when you put on the new pair, you feel taller, which is good for me. I'm 5'4" and a half, so I felt like I was 5'5" and a half with the new pairs. And then these made it through. It was like super mucky, and I might have changed into a 4th pair earlier, because by the time I got to Katahdin, I felt like these were nowhere near being done yet. If I got them earlier, maybe that would have kind of helped with some foot problems earlier, been able to go through the rocks in Pennsylvania, and then after Pennsylvania earlier get some new shoes. So what I look for in a shoe, like I said earlier, you want something that's you're gonna cup the heel so that it doesn't piston on you. If you get you're most likely gonna buy a shoe that's a little big for the Appalachian Trail, because they say your feet swell or they grow a little bit while you're on the trail. And what I mean by grow, the bones don't get longer, the muscles get bigger, because you're doing so much walking. But you don't want a shoe where you're pistoning in and out. You don't want it so big that you piston in and out, and now you stand a chance of getting a big blister on your heel. You want a wide toe box, and then you want enough room at the end of the shoe. So with that said, these shoes for me were great. These were this is a shout out to Topo. I actually sent them a little, thank you for their shoes. These are the best trail shoes I could have asked for the Appalachian Trail. I did wear Altras, A-L-T-R-A, the Lone Peak 6s, I believe. And while I was wearing those, I felt like they were really good shoes. For me, the arch hit kind of funny on the shoe because I was wearing a 9 in those as well. And had I worn an 8.5, that might have been better for the arch, but it would have been too short for my toes. So that's kind of a suggestion on what you're looking for. If you are hiking and within the first 3 to 4 weeks you start to experience foot pain, calf pain, anything in the lower leg, maybe even hip pain, you might think about changing out of your shoes. I met with somebody, I had been talking to them, they were having horrible Achilles pain. They went into town early, bought new shoes, and that rectified the problem, so they were able to continue to hike. And I know they finished because I've texted her since, so congrats to her if she remembers who that is. I don't want to name names other than, just outright. But that's kind of how I look at it. You have to find the right shoe for you. You have to be willing to try something different if you know the Pennsylvania rocks are coming. I made the change and it worked for me. For other people, that might be a drastic change. It might not be worth their time. But for me, it worked. And then if you get blowouts where your shoes blow out literally in one day in Maine, you need to get out of them as soon as you can. I had several friends who, they were throwing duct tape, KT tape, anything over the shoe because of a blowout, which, you have to do that. The Appalachian Trail is not about doing everything perfect. It's about managing things while they are happening or they're going on. For example, early on when I talked about my getting the anterior tib tendonitis, my leg was swelling up a little bit. I do have trouble with some swelling in my legs from a previous blood clot, but there was a big lump in the front, so I started to go big on anti-inflammatories and Tylenol. So, which when you're hiking that many miles, I don't think it's doing as much damage. I'm not a doctor, don't quote me on that. But I was taking anti-inflammatories and Tylenol fairly regularly to help because I was hobbling. I also use KT tape. I use KT tape a lot on the trail, and I spoke to a lot of people about KT tape to try to help them out with different things. I stayed ahead of it. I actually going to send out a thank you to right now to Walkie Talkie. If you're watching, thank you for the use of your long socks that went up over my calves, and they were a godsend, and I appreciate Walkie Talkie for sharing those with me, because that helped with some compression, and it would help to keep the swelling down. And I was able to manage that until my legs got stronger, my lower legs got stronger, and as I started to manage my backpack a little better, it took stress off of my lower legs. So that's shoes in a nutshell. If you are ready to head out on the trail, make sure you have the right shoe, but be willing to change things out. I know it can get expensive. These shoes are $140 a pair, so $280, $560 plus a $60 pair of the Superfeet, multiple pairs of socks. I will say that I did end the trail with, I think it was 5 socks. Not 5 pairs of socks, 5 socks, because I bought a 4th and 5th sock in Maine because I was rotating 3 socks. I had lost one off the top of my backpack, but you guys don't want to hear about that. You're going to have your own foibles on the trail. If you have any questions about shoes, leave them in the comments. I will get back to people. Again, I'm a physical therapist by trade, so I can help with all that. If you're on the trail and you find this video and you're struggling with something, leave a comment. I'll be taking a look at all those comments and trying to help people as much as I can. And yeah, get ready for number 2 in our series of prepping for the Appalachian Trail. I'm going to I don't know, give it a name, but yeah, thank you for watching, and I will have a next video tomorrow, so stay tuned.